I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot of the Riverside Manor, and I can hear the music not clearly. Just the bass line thumping through the brick walls, vibrating across the asphalt. Every few minutes, laughter erupts from inside, muffled but unmistakable. It's 6:47 p.m. on a Saturday in September, and my daughter is getting married 70 feet away from me. I'm not inside. She made that clear 6 weeks ago. The air conditioning in my Honda is struggling against the Atlanta heat, even though the sun's starting to dip. I've got the engine running because I need the cool air, need something to focus on, besides the fact that I drove 3 hours to sit in a parking space while my only child walks down an aisle I'll never see. My hands are on the steering wheel, even though I'm not going anywhere. The leather is warm under my palms. I count the beats of the bass. I try not to imagine what song they're playing. There are cars everywhere, expensive ones mostly. A Tesla, 2 Mercedes, a Lexus SUV that probably costs more than my annual salary. I parked in the back corner, away from the entrance, because I didn't want anyone to see me, didn't want the question, didn't want to explain why the mother of the bride is sitting alone in a 10-year-old. Accord instead of crying happy tears in the front row. My phone is face down on the passenger seat. It's been silent for 40 minutes. I haven't checked it because I'm afraid of what I'll see or won't see. No updates, no photos, no last-minute change of heart. Just the absence of my name on a guest list that includes 200 other people, including relatives I haven't spoken to in years, including her father's new wife, including strangers who mean nothing to her, but apparently mean more than I do. I told myself I wouldn't come. For weeks I told myself that. Told my sister. Told my coworker. Told the woman at church who asked if I'd found a dress yet. I said I respected Nia's decision. I said if she needed space, I'd give it to her. I said I wasn't going to be the kind of mother who forced herself into moments where she wasn't wanted. But here I am, because she's still my daughter. The argument happened in March. Late March, the 28th, to be exact, because it was 2 days after my birthday. And I remember thinking how cruel the timing was. We were supposed to have dinner, just the 2 of us, at the Italian place near her apartment in Buckhead, the one with the candles on every table and the pasta she always ordered. She'd been distant for a few months. Short texts, canceled plans, always busy with work or wedding prep or her fiancé's family events. I didn't push. I never pushed with Nia. She was the kind of person who shut down when pressured, who needed to come to you on her own terms. But that night, I asked her a question I shouldn't have asked. I asked her if she was happy, not about the wedding, not about Marcus, her fiancé, just in general, if she was happy, if this was what she really wanted, if she'd taken a moment to breathe in the middle of all the planning and the chaos and the expectations, to ask herself what she actually needed. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. Why would you ask me that? Her voice was low, controlled. Nia never yelled. Even as a kid, she didn't yell. She got quiet, colder. It was worse than yelling. I'm just checking in, baby. I seem what? Overwhelmed. She set down her fork. Her engagement ring caught the candlelight. Massive, platinum, a stone I couldn't have afforded in 3 lifetimes. Marcus had money. His family had money. That was obvious from the beginning, from the first time Nia brought him to Sunday dinner. And he showed up in a suit that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. I'm fine, Mom. Okay. I'm happy. Okay. You don't believe me. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She was right. I didn't believe her. Not entirely. Because I knew my daughter. I knew the way her mouth tightened when she was forcing a smile. I knew the way she avoided eye contact when she was hiding something. I knew the difference between the Nia, who was genuinely joyful and the Nia who was performing joy for an audience. And that night, she was performing, "I just want to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons," I said. That's when everything broke. The right reasons? What does that even mean? Nia, no, seriously. What are you trying to say? That I'm marrying Marcus for his money? That I'm making a mistake? That I'm too young, or too stupid, or too chill, or wow? I never said any of that. You didn't have to. You've been thinking it since the day I introduced you to him. That wasn't true. Or maybe it was partially true. I didn't dislike Marcus. I didn't know him well enough to dislike him. He was polite, charming. He always said the right things, always brought wine to dinner, always complimented my cooking, even though I knew he was used to restaurants with Michelin stars. But there was something smooth about him, something rehearsed, like he'd learned how to make people comfortable without ever actually letting them in. And Nia had changed around him, not in obvious ways, not in ways I could point to and say, "There, that's the problem." But she laughed differently, dressed differently, talked about things that didn't sound like her. Vacation, homes and investment portfolios, and country clubs. She'd always been ambitious, always been driven, but there was a softness to her that seemed to be disappearing under layers of marble and silk and expectations I didn't fully understand. "I love him, Mom." She said it like a challenge. "I know you do." "Do you?" "Yes." "Then why are you doing this?" "I'm not doing anything. I'm asking a question. You're questioning my choices. I'm questioning if you've had time to think about them." She stood up. We were in the middle of the restaurant, and she stood up, grabbed her purse, and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, something colder, disappointment maybe, or resignation. "I don't need you to approve of my life. I don't need you to save me from mistakes you think I'm making. Nia, please. I'm getting married in 6 months, with or without your support. I'd prefer with, but if you can't do that, then maybe it's better if you just stay out of it." She left. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at her half-eaten plate of carbonara before I paid the bill and drove home. We didn't speak for 2 weeks. When she finally called, her voice was measured, professional almost, like she was reading from a script. "Mom, I need to tell you something." I was in my kitchen, unloading the dishwasher. I stopped moving. "Okay, Marcus and I have been talking about the wedding, about boundaries, about what we need to feel supported on our day. Our day. Not her day. Our day. And we've decided that it's important for us to be surrounded only by people who fully support our union." Union. She said union. Nia, who used to call me at 2 a.m. during college to talk about boys she liked, who used to cry on my shoulder after bad breakups, who used to ask my advice about everything from job offers to whether she should cut her hair. This version of Nia was talking about unions and boundaries, and she was a corporate press release. "I support you, Nia. I know you think you do, but the things you said at dinner, I was worried about you. I don't need you to worry. I need you to trust me. I do trust you. Then trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust that Marcus is good for me. Trust that I'm making the right choice." There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe the call had dropped. "Mom, I don't think you should come to the wedding." The dishwasher was still open. I remember that. I remember staring at the rows of clean plates and thinking how absurd it was that I was standing in my kitchen being uninvited from my daughter's wedding while holding a coffee mug with a chip in the rim. "What? I think it's better if you don't come. You're uninviting me. I'm asking you to respect our decision." "Our decision? You mean Marcus's decision? It's both of ours." "Did he tell you to do this?" "He didn't tell me anything. We discussed it. Together. As a couple." I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to her. apartment and shake her, and ask her when she'd become this person, this stranger, who talked like a lawyer and made decisions that shattered her own mother's heart without even a tremor in her voice. But I didn't, because I knew Nia, and I knew that the more I pushed, the further she'd run. If that's what you want, it's what we need, then I won't come. Thank you, like I'd done her a favor, like I'd agreed to skip a book club meeting instead of the most important day of her life. I love you, Nia. She was quiet for a moment. I love you too, but it didn't sound like love. It sounded like obligation. That was 6 weeks ago. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my sister, not my friends, not the people at church who kept asking about the wedding. I made excuses. I was vague. I said I wasn't sure if I could get the time off work, that I was dealing with some health issues, that the venue was small, and the guest list was tight. Eventually, I told my sister. She was furious. You need to talk to her. You need to fix this. I can't fix it. She's your daughter, and she doesn't want me there. So you're just going to accept that? I didn't have an answer, because what was the alternative? Show up anyway? Force my way into a room where I wasn't wanted? Stand in the back while my daughter glared at me, while Marcus's family whispered, while everyone wondered why the mother of the bride was causing a scene? I couldn't do that to her, even if she could do this to me. So I told myself I'd stay home. I'd send a gift. I'd wait for her to come around. I'd give her space and time. And eventually, maybe, she'd realize that shutting me out wasn't the answer. But this morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. and couldn't go back to sleep. I kept thinking about the first time I held her. The hospital in Augusta, 23 years ago. The room dim and quiet except for the beeping monitors. She was 6 pounds, 4 ounces. She had a full head of dark hair and eyes that seemed too aware for a newborn. The nurse placed her in my arms, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is everything. I raised her alone. Her father left before she turned 2, sent checks for a while, then stopped, moved to Charlotte, started a new family, became a ghost in her life, except for the occasional birthday. Card with a $20 bill inside. I worked 2 jobs for years. Medical billing during the day, bartending on weekends. I missed school plays because I couldn't get the time off. I bought her clothes from thrift stores and convinced her they were treasure hunts. I made dinners out of whatever was on sale and told her we were being adventurous. She never complained. She was a good kid, quiet, focused, determined. She got a scholarship to Georgia State, graduated summa cum laude, got a job at a marketing firm in Atlanta, moved into a nice apartment, started making more money than I ever had. And then she met Marcus at a networking event, she said. He worked in finance, private equity, whatever that meant. He was 32 to her 22, confident, polished. He wore watches that cost more than my car. He took her to places I couldn't pronounce. Within 6 months, they were engaged. I was happy for her. I was. But I also felt something else, something I couldn't name at first. Not jealousy, exactly, not resentment. Just a quiet, creeping sense that I was losing her to a world I'd never be able to enter, and maybe I was right. At 2 p.m. this afternoon, I got in my car. I didn't plan it. I told myself I was just going for a drive. But I took I-85 north and I kept driving. And by the time I hit the exit for Riverside Manor, I knew I wasn't turning around. I parked in the back corner of the lot at 4:30 p.m. The ceremony was at 5 or. I watched guests arrive, women in dresses that probably cost what I made in a month, men in tailored suits, valets taking keys, a photographer setting up near the entrance. Everything was perfect, elegant, expensive. I recognized some people. Nia's aunt on her father's side. A few of her college friends. Marcus's parents, I'd met them once, briefly, at an engagement party I wasn't supposed to feel uncomfortable at, but absolutely did. No one saw me. I made sure of that. At 5:15, the music changed. I couldn't hear it clearly, but I knew what it meant. The ceremony was starting. I imagined Nia in her dress. I'd never seen it, but I knew she'd chosen something classic, probably strapless, probably ivory instead of white. I imagined her walking down the aisle. I imagined Marcus waiting for her. I imagined vows and rings, and the moment they were pronounced, husband and wife, and I cried, not loud, messy crying, just tears sliding down my face, while I sat alone in a parking lot, gripping my steering wheel, listening to bass lines and muffled laughter from a party I'd never attend. By 6, Aunt Alice. Guests were moving to the reception. I could see them through the windows, mingling, drinking, dancing. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lot. I should have left. I knew I should have left, but I didn't, because some part of me, some stupid, hopeful part, thought maybe she'd come looking for me. Maybe she'd step outside for air and see my car and realize I'd been here the whole time. Maybe she'd walk over and knock on my window and say, "Mom, I'm sorry. Come inside." She didn't. At 7:30, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I almost dropped it. It was a text from my sister. "How are you holding up?" I didn't respond. At 8:15, the music got louder. The reception was in full swing. I could see silhouettes moving past the windows. I wondered if Nia was dancing. I wondered if she was happy. I wondered if she'd thought about me at all. At 9:20, someone stumbled out of the side entrance. A man. Young, maybe late 20s. He was on his phone, pacing near the bushes. His voice carried across the parking lot. Angry. Sharp. I couldn't make out the words, but I recognized the tone. An argument. He went back inside. At 10:08, the music stopped. Not gradually. Just stopped. I sat up straighter. There were voices now, raised voices, still muffled, but urgent. Something was wrong. At 10:47, the side entrance burst open. Nia stumbled out. She was still in her wedding dress. The bottom was dirty, smudged with something dark. Her hair had come loose from whatever elegant updo she'd had. Her makeup was streaked. She was alone. She stood under the light by the door, looking around like she didn't know where to go. Her hands were shaking. Even from 70 feet away, I could see her hands shaking. I was out of the car before I realized I'd moved. "Nia?" She turned. For a moment, she just stared at me, like she couldn't process what she was seeing, like I was a ghost. "Mom?" Her voice cracked. I crossed the parking lot. I didn't run. I didn't want to startle her, but I moved fast, and when I reached her, she collapsed into my arms. She sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. I held her while she cried, my hand on the back of her head, her face pressed into my shoulder. Her dress rustled against me. Silk and tulle, and about $10,000 worth of fabric that was now crumpled and stained. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm here." She didn't ask why I was in the parking lot. She didn't ask how long I'd been there. She just held on to me like I was the only solid thing in the world. Behind us, people started emerging from the venue. Confused guests, concerned relatives. Someone was calling Nia's name. She pulled back, her face streaked with mascara and tears. "Can we go?" "Yes." "Right now?" "Yes." I guided her to my car. She got in the passenger seat, still shaking, still crying. I didn't ask questions. I just started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot while people shouted behind us, while her phone started buzzing nonstop in her lap, while her wedding reception collapsed into chaos 70 feet away. We drove in silence for 20 minutes. She stared out the window. Her hands were folded in her lap, twisting the fabric of her dress. Her breathing was uneven. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I finally asked. She was quiet for a long time. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, "You were right. I didn't say anything. About everything. I kept my eyes on the road. Marcus. Her voice broke. She swallowed hard, tried again. There was another woman. At the reception. She showed up. She said. She couldn't finish. I reached over and took her hand. It's okay. You don't have to explain right now. I'm so sorry, Mom. Don't. I should have listened to you. Nia, I should have let you come. I should have... Baby, stop. I pulled off at the next exit, into the parking lot of a closed gas station. I put the car in park and turned to face her. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I was so awful to you. You were protecting yourself, or you thought you were. Aio wema aies. I was wrong. You were scared. That's not an excuse. No, but it's a reason. She started crying again, softer this time. Exhausted. What do I do now? I brushed a strand of hair from her face. You come home. You take a shower. You sleep. And tomorrow we figure out the rest. Just like that? Just like that. You're not angry? I thought about that. About the 6 weeks of silence. About sitting in a parking lot while she got married without me. About the months of distance and coldness. And all the ways she'd pushed me away. I'm hurt, I said. But I'm not angry. Why not? Because you're my daughter, and I love you. And nothing, not Marcus, not a wedding, not anything, changes that. She leaned her head against the window. I ruined everything. No, you didn't. My marriage is over before it even started. Then maybe it wasn't meant to start. She looked at me. How are you so calm? I'm not calm. I'm devastated. But I'm also your mother. And right now, what you need is someone who's not falling apart. She nodded slowly. Can we really just go home? We can do whatever you need. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I need you. I squeezed her hand. You've always had me. We sat there in that empty parking lot for a while longer. Her in her ruined wedding dress, me in the jeans and blouse I'd worn to sit alone in a car. Eventually, she asked if we could stop somewhere to get her out of the dress. And I drove to a Target that was about to close and waited in the car while she went inside and came back in sweatpants and a t-shirt, carrying her wedding gown in a plastic bag like it was trash. We didn't talk much on the drive back to my house. She fell asleep somewhere around Macon, her head against the window, her phone still buzzing periodically in her lap. I turned it off for her. By the time we pulled into my driveway, it was almost 1 a.m. I woke her gently. We're home. She looked around disoriented. Home? My home. Your home. Whatever you want to call it. She got out of the car slowly, like her body weighed 1,000 pounds. Inside, I made her tea. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten breakfast every morning for 18 years, and stared at the cup without drinking. Do you want to talk about it? I asked. She shook her head. Okay, maybe tomorrow. Whenever you're ready. She looked up at me. Why were you in the parking lot? I sat down across from her. Because I'm your mother, and I couldn't stay away. You knew I didn't want you there. I did. But you came anyway. I stayed outside. I didn't crash your wedding. I needed to be close. Her eyes filled with tears again. That's so sad. Maybe, but it's also love. She reached across the table and took my hand. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. After everything I said, Nia, stop. You don't have to keep apologizing. We're going to get through this. How? 1 day at a time. 1 hour at a time if we have to. She nodded, exhausted. I walked her to her old bedroom. I'd kept it mostly the same. Her posters on the walls, her bookshelf full of college textbooks, and YA novels she'd loved as a teenager. She looked around like she was seeing it for the first time in years. I forgot how small this room was. You used to say it was cozy. It is cozy. She sat on the bed, the same bed where I'd read her stories when she was little, The same bed where she'd cried over her first breakup. The same bed where we'd stayed up all night talking before she left for college. "Can you stay?" she asked. Of course. I lay down next to her, on top of the covers. She curled into me like she was 7 years old again. "I messed up so bad, Mom." "Everyone messes up. Not like this." "You'd be surprised." She was quiet. "What am I going to tell people?" "The truth. That my marriage ended on my wedding night? If that's what happened, then yes. Everyone's going to think I'm an idiot." "The people who matter won't." She sighed. "I loved him. I really did." "I know. How did you know he wasn't right for me?" "I thought about that. I didn't know for sure. I just knew you weren't yourself around him. You were trying to be someone you thought he wanted instead of someone you actually were. That's not his fault." "No, but it's also not a foundation for a marriage." She was quiet for a long time. I thought maybe she'd fallen asleep. Then, "Thank you for being in that parking lot. There was nowhere else I would have been." "Even after I uninvited you?" "Especially after you uninvited me." She turned to look at me. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Love someone even when they hurt you. It's not something you do. It's something you are. And you're my daughter. So it's not a choice. It just is." She started crying again, but softer now. Quieter. I held her until she fell asleep. Then I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, feeling grateful and heartbroken and exhausted all at once. At some point, I got up and went to my own room, but I didn't sleep. I sat by my window and looked out at the street, at the quiet neighborhood, at the ordinary night that had followed the most extraordinary disaster. And I thought about the parking lot, about sitting there for hours, waiting for something I knew wouldn't happen, about hearing the music and imagining her smiling, about watching her stumble out into the night, broken and alone, about the fact that I'd been there to catch her, not because I'd planned it, not because I'd expected to be needed, but because I was her mother. And that meant showing up, even when it hurt, even when I wasn't wanted, even when all I could do was wait in a parking lot and hope. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. out of habit. My body didn't care that I'd only slept 3 hours. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, wondering if yesterday had actually happened or if I dreamed the whole thing. Then I heard movement in the hallway. I got up and found Nia standing in the kitchen, still in the Target sweatpants, staring at the coffee maker like she'd forgotten how it worked. "Hey," I said softly. She turned. Her eyes were puffy, her hair a mess. She looked like she'd aged 5 years overnight. "I didn't know if you'd be up." "Always am." "Right, I forgot." I moved past her and started the coffee. She stood there watching me, her arms wrapped around herself. "Did you sleep?" I asked. "A little. You?" "Enough." That was a lie, but she didn't need to know that. The coffee maker gurgled and hissed. Neither of us spoke. It wasn't awkward exactly, just heavy, like we were both aware that at some point we'd have to talk about what happened, and neither of us wanted to be the one to start. I poured 2 cups, black for me, cream and sugar for her. I still remembered. She took the cup and wrapped both hands around it. "My phone has 187 missed calls. You don't have to look at them. Marcus called 63 times. Nia, his mother called 22 times. His father called 11. My bridesmaids called, I don't even know. A lot. You can turn it off." I did, but I turned it back on. I don't know why. She sat down at the table. I joined her. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" I asked. "The actual details?" She stared into her coffee. "Not really." "Okay, but I probably should. Only if you're ready." She took a breath, then another, like she was preparing to dive underwater. "Her name is Vanessa." I waited. "She's his ex-girlfriend. Or, I guess not his ex. That's the problem." My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "They dated for 4 years. before me. He told me they broke up 2 years ago. He said it was mutual. He said they hadn't spoken since. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. He lied. How did you find out? She showed up at the reception around 9:30. I was dancing with my cousin when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around and there she was, this beautiful woman in a black dress. I didn't know who she was at first. She just looked at me and said, "We need to talk." Nia's hands were shaking. She set down the coffee cup. I asked who she was. She said, "I'm the woman your husband's been sleeping with for the past 8 months. Just like that, in the middle of the dance floor. People were starting to stare. I looked around for Marcus, and he was across the room talking to his groomsmen. He hadn't seen her yet. "What did you do?" I grabbed her arm and pulled her outside, into the hallway. I told her she was crazy. I told her she needed to leave. She just smiled, this sad, pitying smile, and she said, "I have proof." Nia's voice cracked. She showed me her phone, text messages, photos, hotel receipts, everything. Months and months of evidence. She said she'd found out about the wedding 3 weeks ago. She said she'd been trying to decide whether to tell me or just let it happen. In the end, she said she couldn't live with herself if she didn't. Thamwa Fao sore. I reached across the table and took her hand. I went back inside. I found Marcus. I pulled him into a side room, some kind of coat closet or storage area. I showed him the messages. I asked him if they were real. What did he say? At first, he denied it. He said she was lying. He said she was obsessed with him, that she'd been harassing him for months, that she was making it all up because she couldn't let go. But then I showed him one of the photos. It was from 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before our wedding. They were in a restaurant. His hand was on her leg. He was kissing her cheek. There was no way to deny it. She pulled her hand away and pressed her palms against her eyes. He started crying, actually crying. He said he was sorry. He said it was a mistake. He said he loved me, and he wanted to marry me. And it didn't mean anything. He begged me not to call off the wedding. He said we could work through it. He said everyone was already here. The ceremony was already over. We were already married. What did you say? I said the wedding was over. I said I was leaving. I said I never wanted to see him again. Jack spomints as on calms. And then his mother burst in. Someone must have told her something was wrong. She asked what was happening. Marcus tried to downplay it. He said we were having a disagreement, that it was just cold feet, that everything was fine. I told her it wasn't fine. I told her what he did. Nia looked up at me, her eyes red. She said I was overreacting. Saino chung. What? She said all men make mistakes. She said marriage is about forgiveness. She said I was being dramatic and immature, and if I walked away over something like this, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. I felt rage rising in my chest, hot and sharp. I kept my voice steady. What did you say to her? I told her to go to hell. Then I walked out. I didn't even grab my purse. I just walked out the side door. And that's when I saw you. She started crying again, not the violent sobs from last night, but quiet tears that slid down her face, unchecked. I can't believe I married him. We signed the papers. It's legal. I'm married to someone who was cheating on me the entire time we were engaged. You'll get it annulled. How? We'll figure it out. We'll find a lawyer. I'm so stupid. No. I ignored every red flag. I ignored you. I ignored my own instincts. I just wanted the fairy tale so badly that I convinced myself it was real. Tatotit. That doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. Soy. I uninvited my own mother from my wedding to protect a man who was lying to my face. Her voice broke on the last word. I got up and moved to her side of the table. I knelt down next to her chair and took both her hands in mine. Listen to me. What Marcus did is not your fault. What his mother said is not your fault. You made decisions based on the information you had. You trusted someone who didn't deserve it. That's not stupidity. That's hope. And I would never, ever want you to lose that. Sa sa chung sao. Dance, but I hurt you. Sawite. Yes, I said terrible things. Yao te called. You did. And you still came. In mat gaund on all. Of course I came. She looked at me, searching my face for something. Anger, maybe. Resentment. She wouldn't find it. Why? Because you're my daughter. Because I would sit in 1,000 parking lots if it meant being there when you needed me. Because that's what love is. She leaned forward and hugged me, awkward because of the angle. Her face pressed against my shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know. I love you. I love you too. We stayed like that for a while. Eventually, my knees started to ache and I had to stand up. Nia wiped her face and tried to smile. What do I do now? Today, nothing. You rest. You eat. You let yourself process. What about tomorrow? Tomorrow we call a lawyer. And after that? After that, you rebuild. One day at a time. She nodded, but she looked overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. Start with breakfast. I'll make pancakes. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I said I'm making pancakes. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. It was the first real expression I'd seen from her since last night. You always did that. Did what? Made pancakes when things were bad. Because pancakes fix everything. They really don't. But they help. As she laughed. Actually laughed. It was small and fragile. But it was there. Okay, pancakes. I moved to the stove and started pulling out ingredients. Flour, eggs, milk, vanilla. The familiar motions were soothing, measuring, mixing, heating the griddle. Nia watched me from the table, her coffee forgotten. Do you remember when I broke up with Terrence in high school? She asked suddenly. Of course. You cried for 3 days straight. You made pancakes every morning. With chocolate chips. You said they were the only thing you could eat. They were. Everything else tasted like sadness. I smiled and poured the first circle of batter onto the griddle. It hissed and bubbled. This feels like that, Nia said quietly. Except worse. So much worse. It is worse. But you survived Terrence. You'll survive this. Terrence didn't cheat on me. He just moved to Florida. True. But the principle stands. You're stronger than you think. The pancake was golden on one side. I flipped it. I don't feel strong. I feel like an idiot. Those aren't mutually exclusive. She almost smiled again. Thanks, Mom. I mean it. You can feel stupid and still be strong. They can coexist. I plated the first pancake and started another. By the time I finished, there was a stack of 6. Butter melting between the layers, syrup on the side. I set the plate in front of her. Eat. I'm really not... Nia? She picked up her fork. She ate slowly at first. Mechanically, like she was just going through the motions. But by the third bite, something shifted. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Her breathing evened out. Food couldn't fix heartbreak, but it could remind your body that it was still alive. I made myself a plate and sat down across from her. We ate in silence. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. I could hear a dog barking down the street, a car door slamming, the distant hum of a lawnmower, normal sounds, ordinary Saturday morning sounds. The world kept turning, even when yours fell apart. Nia finished half her pancakes before pushing the plate away. I should call someone. Let people know I'm okay. Do you want to? No, but I should. What do you want to say? She thought about it. I don't know. Sorry I ruined your Saturday night. My husband's a cheater. Hope you enjoyed the open bar? That would certainly be direct. I can't face them, Mom. All those people. They saw a woman stand up for herself. They saw someone refuse to settle. They saw a mess. Maybe. But you don't owe them anything. Marcus's family is going to destroy me. His mother already hates me. Let her. Her opinion doesn't matter. Easy for you to say. No, it's not easy. But it's true. Nia's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, then looked away. That's the 47th call from Marcus's sister. You don't have to answer. She's probably going to show up here. Then I'll handle it. Mom, I mean it. You're not dealing with them today. Or tomorrow. Not until you're ready. She looked at me with something like relief. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm your mother. It's literally my job. The phone buzzed again. Then again. Then it started ringing. Nia reached for it, but I was faster. I grabbed it, silenced it, and set it face down on the counter. No. But no. Today is a phone-free day. Today, you exist in a bubble where Marcus and his family and everyone at that wedding don't exist. Today, it's just you and me and pancakes and bad TV. Bad TV? The worse the better. I'm thinking reality shows about people building tiny houses or marrying strangers or surviving on islands. That sounds terrible. Exactly. That's the point. For the first time since she'd collapsed in the parking lot, Nia actually smiled. A real smile, not a ghost of one. Okay, bad TV it is. We moved to the living room. I turned on the television and found some show about couples, house hunting in exotic locations, the kind of show where everyone's problems were solvable with the right floor, plan, and some accent pillows. Nia curled up on the couch under the blanket I kept draped over the back, the same blanket she'd used as a kid during sick days and movie nights. I sat next to her. We watched 3 episodes without talking. At some point, Nia fell asleep. I let her. I sat there and watched her breathe, the way I used to when she was a baby, making sure her chest was rising and falling, making sure she was okay. She wasn't okay, not yet, but she would be. Around noon, my sister called. I stepped into the kitchen to answer. Is she with you? Monica asked immediately. Yes. Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach her all morning. What the hell happened? And was so manthou. Marcus cheated on her. The other woman showed up at the reception. Girl, Jesus Christ. I and your choker asked you vows that. Yeah. Is she okay? Oh, no. But she will be. So, do you need anything? Should I come over? Not yet. Give her a few days. Tell her I love her. I will. Iowa and bounce wall. And tell her if she needs me to slash Marcus's tires, I'm available. Despite everything, I smiled. Noted. After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a moment, looking at the mess of breakfast dishes. The griddle still had batter residue. The syrup bottle was sticky. Everything needed to be cleaned. I left it. For once in my life, I left the mess and went back to the living room where my daughter was, sleeping on my couch in sweatpants. Her wedding day disaster still fresh. Her future uncertain. I sat down next to her and picked up the remote. I found another terrible show. This one about people trying to survive in the wilderness with nothing but a knife and their wits. I watched people eat bugs and build shelters and cry about missing their families, and I thought about how strange it was that 24 hours ago, I'd been sitting in a parking lot, listening to my daughter's wedding reception through walls, wondering if I'd ever speak to her again. Now she was asleep on my couch. The wedding was over. The marriage was over, but we weren't. That night, Nia woke up around 6 p.m. She looked disoriented for a moment, like she'd forgotten where she was. Then memory settled back in, and her face crumpled. It wasn't a dream. And vai I oi kapor. No, I was hoping it was. A gas gain a no gas gain. I know. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. How long did I sleep? Gis a krot are 5 hours, give or take. Testa friponepati. A gi a. I had the weirdest dream. I was back at the wedding, but I was the only one there. Everyone else was gone. Just me in an empty room wearing that dress. Chatawau Gaksaker Steve. Yes, that's unsettling. Yeah, she looked around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. Your house looks exactly the same. Stes enet ote. Should it look different? I don't know. I guess I thought time would change things more than it did. Aisatata sao stas si au anai enstein. Some things change. Some things stay the same. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. I need to deal with this. I can't just hide here forever. Ali gay away guide. You're not hiding. You're recovering. Star. Same thing. Not even close. She looked at me. What do I do first? Tomorrow, I mean. What's the first step? Gatsiyam. Why no may? We find you a lawyer, someone who specializes in annulments. Samaini dam gams denai gand announce. Do you know anyone? As ein white ein. No, but we'll find someone. So I'll that, and then after that, you figure out where you want to live, what you want to do, how you want to move forward. Saupagord. I can't go back to my apartment. It's our apartment, his and mine. All his stuff is there. Sabertau Jenny now and yen alls. Then you stay here. Mom. Setnates. I'm serious. Stay as long as you need. What if that's months? Anau sosrel o kaba bonsau. Then it's months. Gain now. What if it's longer? Then it's longer. Nia, I don't care. You're my daughter. This is your home. It's always been your home. Her eyes filled with tears again. I don't know how you're being so nice to me after everything I said. Because I'm your mother. And mothers don't keep score. Inetta bouts. They should. Well, I don't. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I really messed up, didn't I? You made choices based on what you thought was right at the time. I chose him over you. You chose what you thought was your future. I was wrong. Yes, but you figured it out. That's what matters. We sat like that for a while. The room was getting dark. I should have turned on a lamp, but I didn't want to move. Eventually, Nia's phone started buzzing again from the kitchen counter where I'd left it. She tensed. I should answer it. You don't have to. What if it's important? What could be more important than your peace right now? She didn't have an answer for that. The buzzing stopped, then started again. Let me check, I said, just to see who it is. I got up and looked at the screen. 17 missed calls from Marcus, 9 from his mother, 6 from unknown numbers, and 1 from a number I recognized, Nia's father. I stared at the screen for a moment, surprised. Robert never called. We'd been divorced for 21 years. He'd remarried, had 2 more kids, built a whole new life that didn't include Nia, except for occasional child support checks and birthday cards. Why was he calling now? I brought the phone back to Nia. Your father called. She looked startled. What? Robert, he called. How does he even know what happened? Someone must have told him. Who? I don't know. Maybe someone at the wedding? She took the phone and stared at it. Should I call him back? Do you want to? I don't know. We barely talk. Then maybe wait. Deal with the immediate crisis first. Yinsa? Sanimiyai kan. She nodded, but she kept looking at the phone like it might explode. This is going to be everywhere, isn't it? Everyone's going to know. Probably. I can't handle that. Then don't. Delete social media. Turn off your phone. Let people talk. They'll move on eventually. What if they don't? Then they don't. But you don't have to participate in your own humiliation. She set the phone down. I was so excited about that wedding. I spent months planning it. The flowers, the menu, the seating chart. I had this vision of how perfect it was going to be. I know, and it was perfect for about 3 hours. The ceremony was beautiful. Everyone said so. And then she didn't finish. I'm sorry, baby. Why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything. I'm sorry you're hurting. That's not your fault. No, but I'm still sorry. She leaned back against the couch and closed her eyes. I keep thinking about Marcus's face when I showed him the photo. The way he just crumbled, like he knew it was over and he couldn't figure out how to stop it. Part of me almost felt bad for him. That's because you're a good person. Or a stupid one. Nia, I'm serious. Why should I feel bad for him? He cheated on me. For months, he lied to my face. He let me plan a wedding while he was sleeping with someone else. You can acknowledge his humanity and still know he was wrong. I don't want to acknowledge his humanity. I want to hate him. Ataydakas, then hate him. Really? If it helps, yes. Be angry. Be furious. Scream if you need to. Break things. Do whatever you need to do to process this. Chwaim. She opened her eyes. You're really okay with me breaking things? As long as they're not expensive or irreplaceable, yes. A tiny smile. You're serious. Completely. What if I want to break a lot of things? Then we'll go to Goodwill and buy a bunch of cheap plates? She actually laughed. That's so weird, but effective. Have you ever done it? Once, after your father left. I bought a bag of mugs at a yard sale and threw them at the fence in the backyard. Did it help? Immensely. She looked at me with something like admiration. I didn't know you did that. There's a lot you don't know about me. Like what? Like the fact that I once drove to Charlotte to yell at your father in person when he stopped sending child support. Gasa in house. You did? I did. Showed up at his office. Made a scene. He wrote me a check immediately. I had no idea. Because I didn't want you to know. You were 7. You didn't need to know your mother was fighting battles on your behalf. She was quiet for a moment. You always protected me. That's the job. Even when I didn't deserve it. Especially then. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she picked it up herself and looked at the screen. It's one of my bridesmaids, Shayna. Do you want to talk to her? Maybe. She's probably freaking out. Then call her, but only if you want to. Nia stood up and walked to the other room. I heard her voice, muffled through the wall. I stayed on the couch and tried not to listen. 10 minutes later, she came back. She looked drained. Well? She said everyone's talking about it. The whole reception fell apart after I left. Marcus's family tried to convince people to stay, but most of them left. Shayna said she heard Marcus and Vanessa screaming at each other in the parking lot. Interesting. She also said Marcus's mother is telling everyone that I overreacted, that I'm unstable, that the whole thing is my fault. The rage I'd felt earlier came roaring back. Of course she is. Shayna said some people believe her. Those people don't matter. They matter to me. They shouldn't. Nia sat back down, defeated. I hate this. I hate that people are talking about me. I hate that Marcus's mother is making me the villain. I hate that everyone thinks I'm the one who ruined the wedding. You didn't ruin anything. Marcus ruined it. His choices, his actions, his lies. Try telling that to 200 wedding guests. I will if I have to. She looked at me, startled. You would, wouldn't you? Without hesitation. That's actually kind of terrifying. Good. People should be a little afraid of me when they mess with my daughter. That made her smile again, small, but real. You're a lot scarier than you look, you know that? I'll take that as a compliment. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Nia spoke again, softer this time. Shayna said she's proud of me for walking away. Good. She said a lot of women would have stayed, tried to make it work, convinced themselves it was just a mistake. She's right. Would you have stayed if Dad had cheated? I thought about that, really thought about it. I don't know. I'd like to think I would have left, but I was young. I had a baby. I didn't have money or options or confidence. So honestly, I might have stayed, at least for a while. That's depressing. It's realistic. So what changed? What made you finally leave? He left first, remember? I didn't have to make that choice. But what if he hadn't? What if he'd wanted to stay? Then I would have had to decide if loving him was worth losing myself. And I really hope, I would have chosen myself. She nodded slowly. I chose myself last night. Yes, you did. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know, but it was also the rightest thing. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. She leaned her head back against the couch. I'm exhausted. Like, bone-deep exhausted. But I also can't sleep. My brain won't shut off. That's adrenaline. And shock. It'll pass. When? Eventually. Super helpful, Mom. I try. She almost smiled again. Outside, the streetlights had come on. The neighborhood was settling into evening. I could hear kids playing down the street, their voices carrying through the open window. Nia stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the street, at the normal suburban scene that had nothing to do with her disaster. This street looks exactly the same as when I was a kid. It basically is. Same houses, same trees, same everything. Kiauna Choi. Change happens slowly around here. That must be nice. Sometimes. She turned to face me. Thank you for letting me come home. You never needed permission. Still, thank you. You're welcome. She glanced at her phone again, then set it face down on the coffee table. I'm going to take a shower. A long one. Is that okay? Of course. And maybe borrow some clothes? Take whatever you need. She disappeared down the hallway. A minute later, I heard the water running. I sat there in the growing darkness, listening to the distant sound of the shower, the neighborhood kids, the ordinary sounds of an ordinary night. My daughter was home, broken, but home. And tomorrow, we'd start putting the pieces back together. I stood up and started cleaning the kitchen, the dishes from breakfast, the coffee cups, the syrup-sticky counter. I moved methodically, letting my hands do familiar work while my mind processed everything. 24 hours ago, I'd been getting ready to drive to a wedding I wasn't invited to. Now my daughter was in my shower, washing away the ruins of her marriage. Life moved fast sometimes. The water shut off. I heard the bathroom door open, footsteps in the hallway. Nia appeared in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt she must have found in her closet. Feel better? I asked. A little. Cleaner at least. She sat at the kitchen table and watched me finish the dishes. What happens Monday? She asked. Monday we call lawyers. We start the annulment process. And after that, you figure out your next step. Job, apartment, whatever you need. What if I don't know what I need? Then you take time to figure it out. She was quiet for a moment. I think I need to stay here for a while, if that's really okay. It's more than okay. I don't know for how long. Doesn't matter. Could be months. I heard you the first time. The answer's still yes. She smiled. Tired but genuine. Okay? Then I'm staying. Good. I dried my hands and sat across from her. We're going to get through this, Nia. I promise you that. How do you know? Because we've gotten through everything else. And because you're stronger than you think. And because I'm not going anywhere. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them back. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. She reached across the table and took my hand. We sat like that for a long time, holding hands across the kitchen table where we'd eaten 1,000 meals, where we'd celebrated birthdays and mourned losses and figured out how to survive every crisis life had thrown at us. This was just one more. And we'd survive this one too, together, outside, The neighborhood grew quieter. The kids went inside. The streetlights glowed steady and warm. And in my kitchen, my daughter held my hand and breathed and existed. And that was enough. For tonight, that was more than enough.